It was supposed to be just another quiet night in hip-hop royalty until everything exploded. Fans are shocked, timelines are on fire, and whispers are turning into full-blown chaos as rumors swirl that Papoose has allegedly moved on, with someone much younger. And if you thought Remy Ma would take that quietly? Think again, because what happened next is being described by insiders as nothing short of unhinged. Sources claim the moment Remy Ma found out, emotions ran high in a way no one saw coming. Phones were allegedly thrown, voices were raised, and years of loyalty, love, and sacrifice came crashing down in a single night. Friends say Remy felt blindsided, betrayed, and humiliated, especially knowing the entire world was watching. One insider even claimed she didn't just feel replaced, she felt erased. Meanwhile, fans are split straight down the middle. Some are rallying behind Remy, calling her a ride or die who stood 10 toes down when it mattered most. Others are questioning Papoose's silence, wondering why he hasn't shut the rumors down yet. And then there's the mystery woman at the center of it all, young, confident, and allegedly unfazed by the storm she's walked into. But that's only the beginning. Behind closed doors, heated arguments reportedly turned personal, old wounds were ripped wide open, and secrets long buried began to surface. The family was left divided, friendships were tested, and reputations hung by a thread. Was this a breaking point years in the making, or a misunderstanding blown out of control? Because if even half of what insiders are claiming is true, this might be the messiest chapter yet. And trust me, you haven't heard the wildest part. The night everything shifted started quietly, almost deceptively calm, with Remy sitting alone in the living room scrolling through her phone, the glow of the screen reflecting off her face as message after message poured in. At first she ignored them, assuming it was just more noise from fans and blogs, the usual chatter that followed her name everywhere. But then one notification caught her eye. A single line, "You need to see this." And just like that, the air in the room felt heavier. She clicked the link, and there it was. A blurry photo, clearly taken by someone hiding behind tinted glass, showing Papoose stepping out of a downtown restaurant late at night. And beside him, close enough that their arms brushed, was a woman who looked far too young to be part of his usual circle. Fans were already losing their minds in the comments. Some calling it fake, others saying they saw it coming. And a few saying things that made Remy's chest tighten in ways she wasn't ready for. She stared at the image longer than she should have. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from shock alone, but from the flood of memories rushing in all at once. Years of standing by him when the industry turned its back. Years of defending their marriage against rumors and whispers. Years of presenting a united front no matter what storms came their way. And now this. The thought that this could be happening behind her back made her stomach churn. She whispered his name under her breath, not in anger yet but in disbelief. This isn't real. It can't be real. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from a close friend. Remy let it ring, then finally answered, her voice steady but strained. Before she could even say hello, the words came spilling out on the other end. "Girl, please tell me this ain't true." That's when something inside Remy cracked. Not fully, but enough to let the hurt seep through. She didn't answer right away. She didn't have an answer. All she could say was, "I'm looking at the same thing you are." As the minutes passed, the story spread like wildfire. Blogs picked it up. Reaction videos started popping up. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high online, and speculation grew wilder by the second. Some claimed Papoose had been seen with the same woman before. Others said Remy and Papoose had been having problems for months. Every theory felt like another slap in the face. By the time Papoose walked through the door later that night, the silence in the room was so thick it felt intentional. He froze the moment he saw her expression. Remy was sitting upright on the couch, phone in hand, eyes locked on him with a look he couldn't quite read. Not yet anger, not yet rage, something colder, something wounded. Papoose tried to speak, but she held up her hand, stopping him before a single word could leave his mouth. "Don't, not yet, I need you to listen before you start explaining." She stood up slowly, walking toward him, then held the phone up between them. "Tell me why the whole world thinks you got a younger girlfriend. Tell me why I'm finding out from strangers instead of from you." His face tightened. He glanced at the screen, then back at her, and sighed deeply. "It's not what it looks like," he said, too quickly. That sentence only made things worse. Remy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fans always say that right before everything falls apart," she shot back. "You know what hurts the most? Not the picture, not her age, it's the silence. You didn't even think to warn me this was coming." Papoose took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I didn't think it would blow up like this." She pulled away immediately. "That's the problem. You didn't think about me at all." The argument escalated fast. Voices rose. Old resentments surfaced. Remy accused him of enjoying the attention, of liking the idea that people thought he had options now. Papoose fired back, saying she was jumping to conclusions and letting the internet control her emotions. At that moment, years of unspoken tension burst through the cracks. Remy reminded him of the sacrifices she made, the time she lost, the loyalty she never questioned. Papoose countered by saying he felt constantly judged, constantly under a microscope, even in his own home. Outside their walls, fans were already picking sides. Some praised Remy for standing her ground. Others accused her of overreacting. Family members began calling, texting, trying to calm things down, but nothing could stop the momentum now. The family was left divided, with some urging Remy to hear him out and others telling her to protect her pride at all costs. What nobody realized then was that this was only the first crack in something much deeper. Because while Remy was confronting the image she saw online, there were details she hadn't uncovered yet. Conversations she didn't know about. Decisions that had already been made in silence. And as that night dragged on, with neither of them willing to back down, one truth became impossible to ignore. Whatever they were fighting about wasn't just about a younger woman. It was about trust. And once trust starts to crumble, everything else soon follows. The argument didn't end that night. It just went quiet in the most dangerous way possible. Papoose retreated to the other room, shutting the door a little harder than necessary, while Remy stayed frozen where she was, replaying every word in her head. The house felt unfamiliar now, like the walls themselves were listening. She sank back onto the couch, hands gripping her phone, scrolling again, searching for something that would prove she was wrong. But every refresh brought more posts, more reactions, more commentary dissecting her marriage like it was a reality show episode. By morning, the story had grown legs. Fans were shocked by how fast things escalated. Reaction channels were live streaming debates. Some claimed insiders had been warning about this for months. Others insisted the woman in the photo was just a business associate. Remy watched clip after clip, her emotions swinging wildly between anger, humiliation, and denial. What hurt most was seeing people question her worth, her age, her relevance. Comments like "he upgraded" and "she's bitter" cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Her phone rang again. This time it was family. An aunt telling her to breathe. A cousin reminding her of her strength. A close friend saying she should leave the house before things got uglier. Remy finally stood up, grabbed her keys, and walked out without saying a word. Papoose heard the door slam but didn't chase her. Later, he would regret that more than he knew. Remy drove aimlessly at first, then pulled into a quiet parking lot overlooking the city. She stared out at the skyline, thinking about how far she'd come and how public every step of her life had been. She recorded a voice memo to herself, words tumbling out raw and unfiltered. "I held you down when nobody else would. I made you part of my comeback. I made us untouchable." Her voice cracked, and she stopped the recording, ashamed of how vulnerable she sounded even to herself. Meanwhile, Papoose was dealing with his own storm. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends asking what was going on. Industry people warning him that the narrative was getting away from him. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, knowing his silence was being interpreted as guilt. He typed out a statement 3 times, deleted it each time. Anything he said now could make it worse. But saying nothing was already costing him. Then came the twist no one expected. Another photo surfaced, this one clearer, taken days earlier. Papoose and the same young woman sitting close, laughing. Not touching, but comfortable. Too comfortable. Blogs labeled her immediately. A younger creative, someone new to the scene. Fans connected dots faster than anyone could control. Emotions ran high again, and the pressure intensified. Remy saw the photo while sitting with friends. The room went silent. Nobody wanted to be the one to speak. Finally, Remy broke the tension with a sharp laugh. "So this been going on, huh?" Her friend tried to calm her down, suggesting there might be an explanation. Remy shook her head. "Explanations don't look like this. Explanations don't hide." She called Papoose. This time, he answered immediately. Before he could say hello, she went in. "You want to tell me about the second picture or should I wait for part 3 tomorrow?" He sighed heavily, his voice tired. "It's not what you think." That phrase again. Remy exploded. "You keep saying that like it means something. You had time to laugh with her but not enough respect to be honest with me." Papoose finally admitted he'd been talking to the woman more than he should have. He insisted nothing physical happened. Said he liked the attention, the admiration, the feeling of being seen without baggage. That confession hit harder than any rumor. Remy went quiet. "So you knew it was wrong," she said softly. "And you did it anyway." By the time they hung up, both of them knew something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't just internet noise anymore. It was personal, it was real, and it was messy. Fans continued to speculate, some accusing Papoose of midlife insecurity, others blaming Remy for being too intense. The family was left divided, choosing sides in private group chats while pretending neutrality in public. That night, Remy posted nothing. No statements, no cryptic quotes, just silence. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. Because everyone could feel it. This wasn't over, not even close. The silence only made things louder. By the next morning, Remy's name was trending again, this time alongside think pieces and fake insiders claiming to know exactly what was happening behind closed doors. Fans were shocked by how quickly sympathy started turning into speculation. Some said she was plotting her exit. Others said she was about to explode publicly. Paparazzi camped outside places she usually went, hoping to catch a reaction, a look, anything they could turn into a headline. Inside, Remy felt like she was unraveling in slow motion. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the images again, heard Papoose's voice admitting he liked the attention. That part haunted her more than anything else. Not that he talked to someone younger, but that he enjoyed feeling seen by someone who didn't know the weight of their history. She replayed every moment she'd supported him, every interview where she defended their bond, every time she said loyalty was everything. Now those words felt like they were mocking her. Papoose, on the other hand, tried to move like nothing was wrong, and that only made things worse. He went out, handled business, smiled through conversations, but inside he was spiraling. Every room he walked into felt colder without her. People looked at him differently now. Some with judgment, some with curiosity, some with quiet satisfaction, like they'd been waiting for this fall. He told himself he didn't cheat, that nothing physical happened, but deep down, he knew emotional lines had been crossed, and once crossed, they don't magically uncross. Another twist hit when a so-called friend leaked a voice note. Not from Remy, not from Papoose, but from the younger woman. Her voice was calm, almost amused, as she spoke about how overwhelming the attention was and how she never meant to cause drama. She claimed she was single, free, and didn't owe anyone anything. Fans latched onto it instantly. Some defended her, others dragged her mercilessly. Emotions ran high again, and the narrative shifted from couple drama to full-blown generational warfare. Remy heard the clip while alone in her kitchen, and something snapped. Not loud, not explosive, just a quiet, dangerous calm. "Says she doesn't owe anyone anything," Remy muttered to herself. "Neither do I." She grabbed her phone and started recording a video. Not live, not yet, just something to get the words out. She spoke about betrayal, about loyalty being treated like a weakness, about how women are expected to age gracefully while men are praised for moving on. She stopped recording before posting, staring at her reflection. Was she ready to go there publicly? Before she could decide, paparazzi photos dropped of Papoose leaving a studio with the same woman. Different day, different angle, same problem. This time, fans didn't wait. Backlash poured in. Even those who defended him before started questioning his choices. Friends called him reckless. Family members told him to fix it before it was too late. The family was left divided more than ever, and private conversations turned heated. Remy called him again, her voice steady but sharp. "You still saying nothing's going on?" Papoose paused too long before answering. That pause said everything. She laughed bitterly. "You don't even hear yourself anymore." He tried to explain that they were collaborating, that things looked worse than they were, that the timing was terrible. Remy cut him off. "Timing is only terrible when you know you're wrong." She hung up and made a decision. If the world wanted a show, she would give them honesty instead. She posted a statement. Not messy, not screaming, controlled, calculated. She spoke about respect, about boundaries, about feeling blindsided. She didn't name the woman. She didn't insult him, and that restraint made it hit harder. Fans flooded the comments, some praising her maturity, others begging her to leave him, a few accusing her of playing the victim. But one thing was clear. The story now had her voice. Papoose read the statement alone. Every word felt like a mirror he didn't want to look into. He realized too late that his silence had allowed others to write his story for him. He finally posted his own response, admitting mistakes but denying betrayal. The internet wasn't satisfied. Emotions ran high again. People dissected his wording, his tone, what he didn't say. And through it all, the younger woman stayed silent, which only fueled more speculation. Then came the private meeting. No cameras, no phones, just them. Remy sat across from him, calm but guarded. Papoose looked tired, older somehow. They talked for hours. About resentment, about feeling taken for granted, about how love can turn into obligation if you stop nurturing it. Remy admitted she'd been hard, always in defense mode. Papoose admitted he ran toward validation instead of communication. Tears were shed, voices rose, but for the first time, it felt real. Still, not everything was resolved. Trust doesn't rebuild in one conversation. Remy told him she needed space. Real space, not performative. Papoose nodded, even though it felt like losing her all over again. When she left, he didn't stop her. Days passed, then weeks. Fans watched every move, every post, every absence. Some days it looked like reconciliation was possible. Other days it felt final. The family remained divided, unsure whether to prepare for a comeback or a breakup. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Remy began to rediscover parts of herself she'd put aside. Not angry, not bitter, just focused. Because no matter how this ended, one thing was clear. This wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a turning point. And the choices made next would define everything that came after. The distance between them started to feel permanent, even though neither had said the words out loud. Remy moved through her days with a quiet intensity, pouring herself into work, into routines, into anything that didn't require her to sit still with her thoughts. Every time she thought she was fine, something small would trigger her. A song, an old interview clip, a fan comment praising their love story like it still existed. Fans were shocked by how fast the narrative flipped, from couple goals to cautionary tale. Papoose tried to respect the space she asked for, but the silence ate at him. Nights were the worst. He replayed their last real conversation over and over, wondering where he could have chosen differently. He told himself he never meant to hurt her, but intent didn't change impact. Everywhere he went, people asked questions without asking. Looks lingered too long. Whispers followed. Some friends distanced themselves, not wanting to be caught in the fallout. Others told him bluntly that he messed up and needed to own it fully or lose everything. Another twist surfaced when an old clip resurfaced online. Remy, years ago, talking about loyalty, saying she would never tolerate emotional disrespect even if nothing physical happened. Fans dug it up and spread it everywhere. Emotions ran high again. People called it foreshadowing. Others called it ironic. Remy saw it late one night and just shook her head. Life has a way of throwing your own words back at you when you least expect it. The younger woman finally spoke publicly, and this time it wasn't a leak. It was intentional. She posted a long message saying she never intended to disrespect anyone, that she admired Remy, and that the situation had spiraled beyond her control. She denied being a girlfriend, denied crossing boundaries, but admitted she enjoyed the mentorship and attention. That last line reignited everything. Fans were shocked by how casual it sounded, like admiration was harmless even when it came at someone else's expense. Remy read the statement carefully. She didn't feel rage. She felt clarity. This was bigger than one person. It was about patterns, about how easily people justify behavior when it benefits them. She didn't respond directly, but later that day she posted a single line. Boundaries are only invisible to people who benefit from crossing them. The internet exploded. Some called it iconic. Others said she was dragging it out. But it was clear she was done staying silent. Papoose saw the post and knew he had lost control of the situation completely. He reached out again, asking to talk. Remy agreed, but on her terms. They met in a neutral place, no history clinging to the walls. This conversation was different, quieter, heavier. Remy told him she didn't feel chosen anymore. Papoose admitted he'd grown comfortable, assuming their bond was unbreakable. That assumption, she said, was the betrayal. He apologized again, this time without explanations. No excuses, no justifications, just accountability. Remy listened, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. When he finished, she told him something he wasn't prepared to hear. I don't know who I am in this marriage anymore. I know who I was fighting for it. I don't know who I am staying in it. The words landed hard. Outside, fans debated nonstop. Some wanted reconciliation, others wanted independence. The family was left divided, with elders urging forgiveness and younger voices urging self-respect. Remy felt pulled in every direction, but ultimately she knew this decision couldn't be made for the internet. It had to be hers. She took a trip alone. No posts, no updates, just distance. During that time, she reflected on how much of herself she'd given to being strong for two. She realized strength doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means walking away without burning everything down. When she returned, paparazzi caught her looking calm, almost lighter. Speculation went wild. Papoose released music that sounded reflective, remorseful. Fans read into every lyric, every line. Some believed it was a plea. Others thought it was too late. Remy didn't comment. Then came the final twist. Remy appeared on a platform, not to air drama, but to speak on growth, boundaries, and self-worth. She didn't name names. She didn't revisit details. She spoke like someone who had already made peace with whatever outcome awaited. Fans were shocked by her composure. Emotions ran high in the comments, but the tone had shifted. It wasn't about scandal anymore. It was about evolution. Papoose watched the appearance and understood something painful but necessary. Whatever happened next wasn't about fixing optics. It was about accepting consequences. He reached out one last time, not to convince, but to acknowledge. Remy responded with gratitude for the honesty and a reminder that love without respect isn't love at all. Where they go from here remains uncertain. Some believe time will heal it. Others believe the chapter has closed. The family is still divided, fans still debating, and questions still unanswered. But one thing is undeniable. This moment changed them both. And no matter how the story ends, it will never be told the same way again. The aftermath lingered like smoke that refused to clear. Even without daily headlines, the tension lived in the pauses between moments, in what wasn't said. Remy kept her circle tight, choosing solitude over noise, but even silence had weight. Everywhere she went, people tried to read her face, searching for clues. Was she done for good or just regrouping? Fans were shocked by how little she gave them. No cryptic captions, no emotional breakdowns, just presence and restraint. Behind that calm, however, emotions still ran high. Late at night, when the world finally slowed down, Remy allowed herself to feel everything she'd held back. The anger that came in waves. The grief for a version of love she believed would last forever. The disappointment that cut deepest because it came from someone she trusted. She journaled endlessly, filling pages with thoughts she would never say out loud. Some nights she cried, others she felt numb. Healing, she realized, wasn't linear. It was messy, unpredictable, and exhausting. Papoose watched all of this from a distance he created. He respected her boundaries publicly, but privately he struggled. Guilt sat heavy on him. Not because of public backlash, but because he finally understood the depth of the damage. He replayed moments where he could have chosen differently. Where a conversation could have replaced secrecy. where honesty could have prevented humiliation. Friends told him to move on, to protect his peace, but peace felt impossible without accountability. Another layer of drama unfolded when industry insiders began whispering about contracts, joint appearances, and cancelled plans. Opportunities they once accepted as a couple were quietly pulled. Fans noticed. They speculated. Some accused Remy of sabotaging him. Others said she was reclaiming her independence. The family was left divided again, debating whether business should stay separate from personal pain. Remy made it clear. This wasn't revenge. It was boundaries. The younger woman faded from the spotlight as quickly as she entered it, but the damage was already done. Fans continued to reference her as a symbol rather than a person, representing temptation, ego, and generational divide. Remy refused to engage in that narrative. She understood something most didn't. Focusing on her would only distract from the real issue. This was about choices, not distractions. Time passed, and with time came perspective. Remy began reconnecting with parts of herself that had nothing to do with marriage or public perception. She trained harder, wrote sharper, laughed more freely with friends who reminded her who she was before everything became complicated. Fans noticed the shift. Comments changed from sympathy to admiration. Emotions ran high again, but this time in a different direction. People weren't watching a breakdown. They were watching a rebuild. Papoose tried therapy, something he once dismissed. The sessions forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about validation, ego, and complacency. He admitted he had taken her strength for granted, assuming she would always be there to absorb impact. Realizing that strength doesn't mean invincibility was humbling. For the first time, he stopped focusing on repairing the relationship and started focusing on repairing himself. When they finally spoke again after weeks of silence, it wasn't emotional. It was honest. They talked about logistics, respect, and mutual acknowledgement of growth. Remy told him she wasn't angry anymore, but she wasn't the same either. He told her he understood, even if it hurt. There was no shouting, no tears, just acceptance. Fans would never see this conversation, and that was intentional. Not everything deserved an audience. Outside, speculation continued. Some swore reconciliation was inevitable. Others claimed the damage was permanent. The family remained divided, but quieter now, as if everyone sensed the end of a chapter approaching. Remy felt it too. Not an ending born of bitterness, but one shaped by clarity. She no longer needed answers from him. She had given them to herself. Then came a moment that surprised everyone. Remy appeared smiling at an event, confident, radiant. Paparazzi photos went viral instantly. Fans were shocked, wondering how she could look so unbothered after such public turmoil. Emotions ran high in comment sections, but the message was clear. She was moving forward. Papoose saw the photos and felt a strange mix of pride and loss. He was glad she was thriving, even if it meant he wasn't part of that picture anymore. He released a quiet statement weeks later, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging lessons learned. It didn't go viral the way drama usually did, but those who read it understood its weight. Where things stand now is complex. Not broken, but transformed. Not together, but not enemies. The family is still divided, fans still debating, and opinions still loud. But beneath the noise, something real happened. Two people were forced to confront uncomfortable truths under the harshest spotlight imaginable. And while the internet may never stop speculating, the truth is simpler than the headlines. Love doesn't always fail because of one moment. Sometimes it fractures slowly, under the weight of unspoken needs and unchecked ego. Remy learned her worth didn't require endurance at any cost. Papoose learned that loyalty demands constant care, not assumptions. This chapter may not have the ending fans want or expect, but it has something rarer. Growth, accountability, and the understanding that sometimes the loudest drama leads to the quietest, most powerful change. The final stretch of the story unfolded without fireworks, and somehow that made it heavier. Remy stepped into a new rhythm, one that didn't revolve around damage control or public opinion. Her days were structured now. Early mornings, long studio sessions, late-night conversations with people who knew her before fame complicated everything. Fans were shocked by how grounded she seemed, like someone who had finally stopped fighting the tide and learned how to swim with it. Yet even in her peace, echoes of the past surfaced. Interviews tried to bait her. Questions danced around the situation, dressed up as curiosity. She answered with grace, redirecting the focus back to her work, her growth, her future. Every time she refused to relive the drama, it felt like a quiet victory. Emotions ran high among fans who wanted more, but Remy understood something they didn't. Closure doesn't come from repeating pain. It comes from releasing it. Papoose felt the shift too. He watched from a distance as she reclaimed her narrative without ever saying his name. That hurt more than any public call-out would have. He realized he couldn't follow the same path. His journey required humility, stepping back, listening more than speaking. He stopped defending himself online, stopped checking comments. Instead, he focused on being consistent in private, even when no one was watching. Another rumor tried to ignite the fire again. A supposed sighting, a vague quote taken out of context. Fans jumped on it instantly, but this time the reaction was different. People questioned the source, asked for proof. The hunger for scandal had dulled. The family was left divided still, but less reactive, like everyone had learned exhaustion the hard way. Remy noticed the change and smiled to herself. Chaos loses power when you stop feeding it. She began mentoring younger artists, especially women navigating public relationships. She spoke to them about boundaries, about how fame magnifies cracks, not creates them. Emotions ran high in those rooms too, but they were productive, healing conversations. One night, alone in her apartment, Remy reread old messages between her and Papoose. Not to torture herself, but to understand. She saw love, real love. She also saw where things drifted, where assumptions replaced conversations. She didn't hate him for it anymore. Hate required energy she no longer wanted to give. Papoose had a similar moment, sitting in a quiet studio after everyone left. He played back a track he never released, filled with regret and reflection. He realized he didn't need the world to validate his remorse. He needed to live differently going forward. That understanding didn't erase the past, but it reshaped his future. Months passed. Life kept moving. Fans adjusted. New stories replaced old ones. But the impact remained. Remy and Papoose crossed paths once more at a mutual event. No cameras caught the moment. No blogs reported it. They exchanged a brief nod. A shared history acknowledged without reopening wounds. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't hostility. It was respect. That single moment said more than any statement ever could. Later, Remy spoke to a friend about it, her voice calm. "We didn't fail," she said. "We outgrew what we were pretending not to outgrow." The words settled in the room like truth. Fans might never accept that explanation, but she didn't need them to. Papoose, too, reflected on that night. He admitted to himself that love doesn't always end in explosions. Sometimes it fades into understanding. Sometimes the lesson is the legacy. The family remained divided in quiet ways. Holidays looked different. Conversations carried pauses where laughter used to live. But there was also relief. The tension that once consumed everything had softened. Healing doesn't mean returning to what was. It means adapting to what is. As time continued, Remy's confidence only grew. Not loud, not defiant, just steady. She was no longer reacting to a story. She was authoring her own. Fans who once demanded answers now celebrated her evolution. Emotions ran high again, but this time they were rooted in inspiration rather than chaos. Papoose rebuilt his life more privately. Fewer appearances, more intention. He learned that growth doesn't need an audience. It needs commitment. He carried the lessons forward, knowing some doors don't reopen, and that's okay. In the end, there was no dramatic finale. No shocking reveal. No sudden reconciliation or bitter fallout. Just two people changed by a very public fracture, choosing to move forward with honesty. And maybe that's the real twist. Not the rumors. Not the younger woman. Not the arguments or the silence. But the fact that out of all the noise, both of them found clarity. Fans may always debate what really happened. Timelines may keep replaying old clips. Opinions will never fully settle. But beneath it all, one truth remains. Sometimes going crazy isn't losing control. Sometimes it's finally refusing to accept less than you deserve. The story didn't disappear, it just transformed into something quieter and more complex. Even as Remy moved forward, there were moments when the weight of everything resurfaced in unexpected ways. A question from a journalist that lingered a second too long. A fan shouting her name followed by his. Memories have a way of sneaking in when you least expect them. Still, she handled it differently now. No tension in her shoulders. No defensiveness. Just calm acknowledgement that a chapter existed and had closed. Fans were shocked by how composed she remained, especially when new narratives tried to stir the pot again. Someone claimed reconciliation talks were happening. Another blog insisted legal steps were underway. None of it was confirmed. None of it was denied. The silence felt intentional, like a boundary drawn in ink instead of pencil. Emotions ran high online, but Remy refused to let speculation dictate her peace. Inside her circle, conversations shifted from what happened to what comes next. Remy talked about legacy more than ever. About how women are often celebrated for endurance but rarely for choosing themselves. She questioned why pain is romanticized when growth is far more powerful. Friends noticed she laughed more now, not the guarded laugh of survival, but a genuine one. That laughter felt like proof she had made the right choice, whatever the final label on her situation ended up being. Papoose felt the ripple effects in different ways. Opportunities still came, but they felt different. People listened more closely to his words now, searching for accountability instead of charm. He learned to speak with care, not because he was afraid, but because he understood impact in a new way. The experience humbled him, stripped away assumptions he didn't realize he carried. He no longer chased validation. He questioned it. Another quiet shift happened when fans began reframing the story themselves. Instead of pointing fingers, many started talking about communication, about emotional boundaries, about how public pressure can crack even the strongest relationships. The family was left divided still, but less loudly. The urgency faded. Acceptance crept in. Remy noticed something else too. Younger women began approaching her differently. Not asking about drama, but about strength. How to stand firm without becoming bitter. How to leave a situation without losing yourself. Those conversations mattered more to her than any headline. Emotions ran high in those moments, but they felt purposeful, like the pain had been transformed into something useful. One evening, Remy sat alone, listening to music she hadn't touched in years. Songs that once felt like love now felt like lessons. She realized she didn't regret the marriage. She regretted ignoring her intuition when it started whispering instead of screaming. That realization didn't hurt, it empowered her. Papoose had his own reckoning when he ran into someone who asked him a simple question. Are you happier now? He paused before answering, realizing happiness wasn't the right measure. He was more aware now, more honest with himself. That mattered more than temporary comfort. Time continued to stretch between the incident and the present, softening edges. Fans still debated, but with less venom. The family was left divided in quieter ways, learning how to coexist without forcing narratives. Remy and Papoose didn't redefine themselves publicly. They let actions speak instead. When Remy finally addressed the situation one last time, it wasn't dramatic. It was reflective. She spoke about seasons, about how some people are meant to grow together and others teach you how to grow apart. Fans were shocked by the maturity in her words. Emotions ran high, but they felt settled, like a final note resolving a long chord. Papoose listened from afar and nodded. Not because it absolved him, but because it aligned with the truth he had come to accept. Growth rarely comes without loss. Accountability rarely comes without discomfort. The internet moved on eventually, as it always does. New scandals replaced old ones. But this story lingered in quieter conversations, in lessons learned rather than gossip recycled. Remy's evolution became the headline without needing to be announced. Papoose's restraint became his response. In the end, there was no villain crowned, no winner declared. Just two people navigating the aftermath of a very public fracture, choosing different paths forward. The family was left divided, yes, but also wiser. Fans were shocked not by chaos, but by calm. And maybe that's how this chapter truly ends. Not with rage or revenge, but with clarity. With boundaries respected. With strength redefined. Because sometimes the loudest drama fades, and what remains is something far more powerful. Peace. As the months stacked on top of each other, the story settled into a strange afterlife. No longer front-page chaos, but never fully gone either. It lived in side comments, in reaction clips revisiting old footage, in fans debating what really broke things beyond the surface narrative. Remy watched it all from a distance, no longer emotionally tethered to how the public interpreted her pain. She understood now that people project their own fears onto other people's relationships. What looked like drama to them had been a reckoning for her. She started saying no more often. No to appearances that felt performative. No to questions framed to reopen wounds. No to situations that demanded she relive something she had already processed. Each no felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she didn't realize she'd been giving away for years. Fans were shocked by how firm she had become, but firmness looked good on her. Emotions ran high when she turned down things people expected her to accept, but she didn't flinch. Papoose noticed the shift even without direct contact. He heard it in the way people spoke about her now. Not as someone reacting, but as someone leading. That realization brought a quiet ache. Not jealousy, not resentment, something closer to respect mixed with regret. He understood now that strength doesn't announce itself. It just moves differently. There were moments when he wanted to reach out again, not to fix anything, but to share small victories, old jokes, familiar comfort. He resisted. Some connections are better honored by distance. That restraint was part of his growth, even when it hurt. Another wave of commentary came when a new interview clip resurfaced, this time of Papoose, speaking about accountability and emotional awareness. Fans reacted differently than before. Some praised the maturity. Others accused him of saying the right things too late. Emotions ran high, but the tone was less cruel, more reflective. The audience, like the people involved, had matured through the process. Remy heard about the clip from a friend and chose not to watch it immediately. When she finally did, she felt no spike of emotion. No anger, no longing, just acknowledgement. People can grow, even if they don't grow together. That understanding felt like freedom. The family dynamic continued evolving. Gatherings were smaller, conversations more intentional. The loud divisions softened into quiet acceptance. Not everyone agreed on what should have happened, but no one argued anymore. Sometimes peace doesn't come from resolution. It comes from fatigue and understanding arriving at the same time. Remy began planning long-term goals that had nothing to do with reacting to the past. Projects rooted in legacy, mentorship, ownership. She talked openly about how public relationships magnify private issues and how important it is to know who you are without an audience. Younger women listened closely. Emotions ran high in those rooms, but they were the kind of emotions that heal instead of harm. Papoose continued his own work quietly. Fewer interviews, more introspection. He learned to sit with discomfort instead of distracting himself from it. That alone changed how he showed up in every area of his life. He no longer chased the version of himself that felt admired. He focused on becoming someone he could respect. Fans still asked the same question over and over. Could they ever find their way back to each other? The truth was, neither of them framed their lives around that question anymore. Reconciliation stopped being the goal. Integrity became the focus. One night, Remy was asked directly in a small setting what she learned from everything. She paused before answering, choosing her words carefully. She said she learned that love without emotional safety slowly turns into survival. That lesson landed heavy. Fans were shocked by how simply she said it. Emotions ran high, but there was no defensiveness in her tone. Papoose, in a separate conversation weeks later, shared a similar sentiment without knowing it. He said he learned that loyalty isn't proven in grand gestures but in everyday choices that protect trust. Hearing that echoed back through the internet felt like a quiet closure neither of them planned but both needed. Time kept doing what time does. Smoothing edges, dulling sharp memories, strengthening new routines. The story that once consumed headlines became a reference point rather than a wound. Fans still debated, but with less urgency. The family was left divided in the sense that people processed it differently, but united in wanting peace. Remy reached a point where she no longer braced herself when their names were mentioned together. It was just part of her history now, not her identity. That distinction mattered. It meant she had fully stepped into the next version of herself. Papoose reached a similar realization when he stopped being introduced in relation to her and started being recognized for his own evolution. It didn't erase the past. It contextualized it. In the end, the story didn't conclude with a dramatic announcement or a final statement. It ended the way many real stories do. Quietly. With understanding replacing urgency. With lessons replacing blame. Fans may always remember the chaos, the rumors, the shock. But those closest to the truth understand something deeper. What looked like someone going crazy was actually someone waking up. Choosing clarity over comfort. Choosing self-respect over performance. And sometimes, that choice is the most dramatic act of all. So now it's your turn. After hearing every twist, every emotional moment, and every hard truth in this story, what do you really think happened behind the scenes? Was this situation blown out of proportion by the internet, or was this a breaking point that had been building for years? Do you believe loyalty was tested beyond repair, or do you think time and accountability could still change everything? Fans are shocked, opinions are split, and emotions are still running high, but your voice matters just as much as anyone else's. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know whose side you're on, or if you think there are no sides at all. Was this about a younger woman, or was it about respect, boundaries, and choices that couldn't be undone? If this story kept you locked in from start to finish, make sure you hit that like button because it helps the channel more than you know. If you enjoy deep dives into dramatic, jaw-dropping stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Trust me, you're going to want to be here for the next one. And remember, this story may be over for now, but the conversation definitely isn't. Keep it respectful, keep it honest, and keep it real down in the comments. We're reading everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.